Alright, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to continue with our Blogify app, right? And what we're going to start will actually help you get a really good idea of why RESTful routing can be helpful in your own particular code in the present moment, right? The future thing that when you come back, you will not have to like see all the routes again. That stands, and that we cannot see in this 45-day course. But the thing is, we can see how it helps us in the present, right? So I think it makes us really easy. It makes it really easy because we know that to implement the CRUD procedures for anything, we need 7 routes, right? So if we are making blogs, we need 7 blog routes. Then if we are adding comments, we need 7 more routes, which will be for the comments, right? So that's how we could like split our code into separate parts. We could have 7 routes for comments in a file. We could have 7 routes for blogs in a file, and then we could link all of those together, right? And that's actually what we're going to start now. And I'm sure this will continue for some videos, that we are going to add comments to our Blogify app, right? Great. So up until now, before we before we start setting up our routes, we'll have to make some changes to our code because doing everything in this is not a very feasible solution, right? So I'm not adding the update and delete for this blogs right now. We'll add that after we've added the comments, right? But the thing is, currently I have how many routes here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This is the home route. We don't need this for the comments. So we'll have 4 new routes for the comments, right? So one thing we could do, we could add them down here. We could add /comments to show all the comments. Of course, /comments would not actually work. So I'll tell you. So I'll tell you the formatting of the routes for that. But the thing is that we don't actually like we'll not actually need 4 new routes. But anyway, the thing is that we'll need some routes for the comments, right? That's definitely sure. So how do we actually like do that? Can I add them below this and do that? Of course I can. That won't give me any errors. But is that a very good practice? Because I'll also have to add a comment schema here. I'll also have to model the comment here. So I'll be doing a lot of things in this app.js. And if there's one thing that I think you would have taken away from this course right now, it's that structuring your code well is always very important. So before we actually start with making the comments routes, we're gonna make some changes and restructuring to our app.js, which is actually really important, right? And which you'll find in every website if you see some pre-made website which is like made with Node or something, or I think made with any backend framework or language, then you will find this kind of a structure almost everywhere, right? If all of these things are actually required. So the structure that we'll have is inside this Blogify, we have this app.js right now, which is the main running file, right? So app.js will always be the main file of our code. That's not going to change. But the thing is, these routes we'll have in a separate file. We'll have a separate file for the blog routes. We'll have a separate file for the comment routes. And we'll have a separate file for these common routes like this /, right? So this is common to the site. And although it is rendering of the blogs, but this is not a blog specific route, right? This is the homepage of our website. So we're going to have separate files for all the routes, and we'll have separate files for the models too, right? And the schemas. So the only thing we'll be doing in app.js will be connecting to the mongoose, and then we'll be telling our app to use the comment route from that file, to use the blog routes from that file, the files that we make. So let's just start with that, right? So first of all, what we're going to need is, we have this until now, right? So inside the Blogify, we'll need 2 new folders. So this I'll do to the terminal. Right. So this is the terminal that I have, and I'm currently inside the Blogify folder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do new directories. The first new directory that I'm going to make is called routes. and the next is called models, right? So now let's keep this side by side so that we can see the changes here. So routes and models are the two new directories that we have, and let me open up routes from here. So inside the routes, we can make 3 new files, right? So touch route slash, and let's call this blogs.js, and you'll see exactly why I'm doing this in just a moment. Comments.js, and the other will be index.js, right? So what I'm aiming to do is inside this routes folder, in the blogs.js file, we'll have all the blogs, all the routes which are corresponding to just the blogs, right? This one, this one, this one, and this one. And in the future, when we'll make the update and the delete routes for the blogs, that will go inside this file too, right? The comments file similarly will have everything relating to the comments, and the index file will have the common routes for all of them, which can be one, this homepage. Next, we could like make a separate file for the authorization routes, but let me tell you that we'll also need to make new routes when we are adding login and sign up functionality too, right? So that also we could put inside the index.js file. So index.js file contains the routes that you cannot specifically split into blogs or comments, right? All right. So this was about the routes thing, and inside the models, what I'm going to do is, first I'm just going to make one file, and then you'll see what the use of the models is, which will be blog.js. So now inside the models, I have a blog.js file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this schema inside of this, right? So let's just first start moving the schema, right? So what I'll do is I'll copy this, I'll cut this, right? And one thing that you need to know, that everything that we're going to link, like you can imagine branches, right? So in the middle there's this app.js, and then there are branches extending from this app.js. One branch is the routes, one is the models, one is something else, one is something else, right? So everything in the end is coming back to app.js. So everything we are doing inside this file will be valid inside all these files too, right? Meaning that if we are doing mongoose.connect in here, we do not specifically need to do mongoose.connect inside this blog.js file too. We can just simply use it, right? And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do const mongoose is equal to. So actually what happens when you are splitting your code into separate files is that you have to require things a lot more, right? So you'll have to require express in a lot of files, not just one. You'll have to require mongoose in a lot of files, not just one. So require statements definitely go up, but that structures your code so well that in the end it becomes really easy to modify it, to explain it to somebody else if you're like taking someone in your team, or if somebody has made this kind of a code, then trust me, you'll be able to understand it really well, right? So that's so yeah, so let's start. So mongoose, require mongoose, great. And now basically all that we need to do inside this is we need to give this blog back to whatever we have. So and now I'm going to like have to introduce a new concept which is known as module.exports is equal to, right? So what is this module.exports, right? So what basically happens is now that we've done this, what you can do is you can require this. So let's say you are inside of a route, right? And you do const blog is equal to require, and then you give the route to this particular JS file, right? So whenever you are like here, you're requiring mongoose. So whatever you're getting back from this was module.exported from that. Meaning that if you require this particular file in some other file, this thing will be given back, right? This thing will be stored in this variable right here whenever you're requiring it, right? So that's what module.exports means. So basically we mean that this JS file is going to export this particular thing, right? So blog will be exported, which is basically the model that we needed. And now our blog schema and blog model is basically ready, right? So now we can close it. Now let's configure our blogs file and our index file. So I'll copy this. I'll cut this basically. I'll go inside the index.js. I'll paste this. But of course, this won't work just yet, right? We'll have to import Express for this, right? So let's do const Express require Express. Excellent. And the next thing that we can do is normally inside the app.js we do this, right? So this would work here. That's never a problem. But the thing is that if you see this, then whenever we are requiring Express, right, and whenever we are calling this Express method and storing it inside of the app, like when we are doing that here. So app gets a lot of methods inside of it. It gets app.use, it gets app.set, it gets app. These are definitely what we need. It gets app.listen. So do we want all of them inside this file? What we're going to do in this file is basically we are just going to make the routes. We are not going to do any app.uses. We are not going to do any app.sets because everything that we are doing here applies to this file already, right? So we do not need to load the whole Express module into this, right? All we need to do is known as express.router. So what happens by doing express.router instead of express only is that this app now gets only these the route making methods, only the get, put, post, and it does not get the app.use, app.set, and app.listen things because you do not actually need them. So why do we need to spend extra time in requiring that when we don't even need them, right? So yeah, so that's it. And one thing that there's a convention of naming this router because this is actually just a router. This is not the whole app, and it's good to have meaningful names. So this is what we will have, and router.get recres. Excellent, great. So now we have this index route here, and this will work almost. Only one thing is remaining. Plus, we'll have to. So now, when we want to export these routes, this is what you do. So by doing module.exports is equal to router, you will export all the routes that are present in here. Currently, there's just one, but you will export all of them when you do this, right? And one more thing that you see that here we've used the blog model, right? So we'll have to need that blog model in this file too. So this is the classic use of the require thing and the module.exports. You'll see that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to do const blog is equal to require, right? And now we are going to give the path from this index.js file to this blog.js model, right? So let's go back once. Then let's go to the models. And then let's go to blog. So you don't need to write .js here. That's taken by default. So what this will do is this will go into /model/blog. So /models/blog, and it this variable here gets whatever was module.exported here from this file, right? So this mongoose.model is equal to blog gets exported and it gets imported here, and now you can use it inside your file, right? So this way we have splitted it, and now these routes are set up. This won't work just yet. We'll have to add a couple of things more inside this app.js file, but we'll do that, and then we'll test whether it's working or not, and if there are some errors, then we'll fix it, right? So now the rest of the routes are for blogs, so I'll cut them. I'll go inside the blog.js routes. I'll paste them in, right? And first thing I'll do, I'll select all apps and I will replace them with router. Replace all. Great. So now I have router.get, and I'm going to do similar thing than what I did here in the index route. So I'll do const express is equal to require express, And next I'm going to do const router is equal to express dot router. And now I'm going to do model.exports router. Right. And now this looks that like this has worked already. But of course, the one thing that we still need to handle is that we have not imported the blog here, right? The blog schema is not present. So let's do const blog is equal to require dot slash model slash blog. The model is spelled wrong. Excellent. So now we have the blog model inside this too due to this statement, and we can use it. So now let's just review whatever has just happened. Let's open all the files that we've changed. Right. So you see how small the app.js becomes. Of course, we're going to have I would have to add a couple more lines there. But even if we do that, you can see how small and readable it has become. The only thing we are doing inside the app.js is we are requiring things. We are giving the app.use and app.set statements. We are connecting to the database, and we are listening to the server, right? And that's all. So now the routes are split into separate files. Now, if you ever want to edit some blog route, you can just simply go to routes, blogs.js. You can see whatever you want to change, and you can change that in a second, right? Similarly, for index.js, you will not have to traverse this whole 200-line file to find whatever you are aiming to find, right? Great. And similarly, if you want to ever edit the blog schema, you do not have to visit this whole file and see the complex structures that you have made. Let's say you have 10 schemas, right? In a recent project that we had, I had like 7 or 8 schemas. So having 7 or 8 schemas here, and then like you can imagine like 5 routes for each thing. So 35 routes here was definitely not a good practice. So hence it was better to split that into routes and models, right? So if you want to edit the blog schema, just come to this, edit the schema, and it gets edited everywhere by itself because you are requiring it, right? Great. So in this way, we have now actually split our things into different parts. Now the only thing is to make it work, right? So if you think about it, what we basically do by writing, when we are writing node-mon, that is equivalent to writing node app.js, right? So the only thing that's happening when we are writing node-mon is this app.js is being run. And the reason we are getting a server is because this app.listen is present here, right? So with the current file that we have in this, there's no indication that we have to use the routes from this particular folder, right? And that's not done by default. We'll have to add something to do that. So how that's done is we basically just need to add app.use statements, right? So I'll currently just do, right? So before we even do that, we'll have to require it. So what happens is we select const. Now what I'm basically aiming to do is I'm aiming to include these routes, require these routes in this particular app.js file, and then use them, right? So what I can do is I can do const blog routes is equal to require. Now we are in the app.js, so we'll simply go into /routes/blogs. So this way the blog routes gets all the things that were exported from this particular file, which is this. And if you remember, we were exporting the router. So now this blog routes has the router that we needed. And we can just simply do app.use blog routes. So by this way, all the routes that are present in here can now be accessed in the same way as they were being accessed before we did all this restructuring, right? And similarly, we can do for the index routes. We'll do /routes/index. So this way we included the index routes, and we can do similarly for them, right? And once this works, I'll also tell you one more thing that we can change in this, right? So now we can expect this thing to work, right? Let's try that out. So I'll do nodemon here, and to make that work, I'll also have to do mongo daemon. Let's wait for them to start, and I'll restart this so that it actually. All right. So now if I visit localhost 3000, I'm getting this, and this is because I've used this index routes in here, and hence the slash route has already been imported into the app.js, meaning this is now working perfectly fine. And you can see the blogs are also showing up, and that can happen only if all the database connectivity has been done perfectly, meaning this file is working fine too. We can also visit the explore page, and that's working too. We can visit the add post page, that's working too. And we can visit the show page, even though it's not styled, but that's showing up too. So now our site is still running the same from what it was. Like, no changes have been done in the look of it from when we started the video, but I'd consider what we've done in this video to be actually one of the most important things that you need to understand, because splitting your code and then using that code and in different things is one of the skills that's, I think, one of the most important. And if you don't understand this skill in time, then all your knowledge will get affected at some point, right? You won't be able to do things as efficiently as you should be. So that's basically splitting the code. And by when I'm saying that you need to understand this, and if you don't, then it's a problem, then I don't mean that you should be really comfortable with it at this particular moment. But by the time we end this course, you should be comfortable with this. And in the final project that you're going to make, it's kind of mandatory to split everything into different files. You can't just do everything inside the app.js, right? Great. So this was basically splitting our code into parts, and this is how we'll be proceeding from now on. So I think we have done most of the splitting for this course. I mean, one more splitting that some people do, and it's often good practice too, but we're not going to do that because that can make it really confusing, is that they make the callback functions in a separate file, and then they just call those functions here. But of course, that becomes really complex for this initial stage, and we're not going to cover that in this course. So for this particular course, what basically we've accomplished is we have split our code into different parts, and I think most of it will remain like this from now on, right? Excellent. So, and there's just one more split left, and just because we're doing the split in this video, I'll do that here too. So the thing is that if you see, then we have home.css, index.css, main.css, and new.css here. And if you think about it, and if you notice this, then I've done index and new.css, which are the two files that we've styled, that are the RESTful routes, and I've given them the names of their routes. So what I'm aiming here is to give them their RESTful names. Index page as the index.css file. So I'll aim to do something similar when we are doing the comments too, right? So for that, we can't have two index.css files inside this style sheets folder. So to actually make that work, I'll have to add a new folder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do blogs and a new folder. So this has come inside the blogs, and I don't need to come inside the blogs. And so blogs and comments will be the two folders, and the style sheets that we have for the blog pages will be inside this folder, and the comment pages will be inside this folder. So we can drag this into this, right? I'll drag this, move, and I'll drag this, move. And the home.css and main.css will remain as it is, because home is an index route and main is for the whole website, right? And now I hope you imagine that if we want to make this work, we'll have to change the routes in the views too. So home.ejs is requiring home.css. That's great. Great. Index.ejs is requiring index.css from inside style sheets, but that's actually not present there now, right? So what we can do is we can add blogs here. So now this will look inside the blogs folder, right? Great. And similarly, in the new.ejs, we are requiring new.css, which is no longer inside the style sheets. It is inside the blogs. So now if I refresh again, I should still see no difference. And as long as I'm not seeing any difference, means this is working. Excellent. So I know this was a very new video. Everything that we learned was new, and a lot of restructuring, which I'm sure nobody who has just started with programming is comfortable with, right? Nobody's comfortable with restructuring in the first place. But the only thing that I wanted you to do in this video was to follow me, right? I didn't expect you to think of anything while I was doing it. I was just expecting that you will do what I'm doing. And if you didn't do that, then I will suggest that you revisit the video and do every single thing that we've done here. And as far as like understanding and thinking of this by yourself is concerned, I'm really sure you'll get the hang of it by the end of this course. Because the amount of use that this will going to have and the amount of comfort that this is going to give us, it's definite that you'll come to like it sooner or later, right? Excellent. So that's basically it for this video. From the next video, we can start adding comments routes, and we can make the schema and all of them. So yeah, that's basically it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.